Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Pak Anies, President of University of Indonesia and staff, Pak Bambang Widianto from TNP 2K, friends from JIPAL, Mr. Abhijit, Ben, Rachel, Rima, and Hector, professors, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to deliver my speech in Bahasa if it's okay. First of all, I would like to thanks JPAL for this collaboration and also for people behind the agreement and also working on this event from LPM, JPAL, as well from UI. We are very excited to have this collaboration in poverty research, especially because even though our core business is in education, but we did many things on research, especially on poverty. Our LPM was established 60 years ago, and I believe it's the oldest institute of research in Indonesia, and did many poverty research. And with JPAL, I think we can have many movement on understanding about poverty, especially on attacking the poverty. So my topic is the importance of research partnership, combining quantitative and qualitative research in dividing and eradicating poverty. I would like to start with the national development. National development is just a process towards a more culture and civilized society, lebih berbudaya and lebih tinggi peradabannya, and we have to really do the multidisciplinary approach on this. And national development has to be inclusive. All elements in the society has to be involved in national development and gets benefits upon it. And of course, even though we know that sometimes we refer the development only the infrastructure and material things, but I believe we have to also think about the non-materials and all aspects of the development. In simple words, is just to humanize the society, to be more humanized, because I think nowadays we are become many things that's become dehumanized. And sometimes we reduce the national development only into the GDP per capita and also growth or reducing poverty rate, etc. In fact, this can be mislead us into the ultimate meaning of national development, because as we can see here, the data, we can show the several Indonesian macro indicators, GDP per capita and GNP per capita. The difference is increasing. We have to really ask whether people get more wealthy or not. And also the Gini index, based on the expenditure, is really moderate. Maybe in 2011 it was increasing into 0.41. But people really have to be worried, because if we use not expenditure, for example, land ownership from the agricultural census, the Gini index is already 0.64 in 1993 and 0.72 in 2003. And of course, maybe we compute the Gini index in 2013, maybe it's around 0.80. This is really scary for us. And also the national poverty headcount shows declining incidence of poverty. As you can see here, the 2012 is already 11.96%, in terms of people, is around 30 million people. It's really similar to the population in Malaysia, so 4 million. If we can make the chess championship, so 1 by 1, it's really exactly the same number. But if we use $2 PPP, the population of poor people is still half of the population. It's around 120 million people. So the poverty is still a big problem in Indonesia. And here the Komite Ekonomi Nasional expect that Indonesia become the developed nation in 2030 with GDP per capita $18,000. And McKinsey also forecast that Indonesia become the rank number 7 in the world in terms of GDP total. And government use MP3EI, Master Plan Perencanaan Pembangunan Ekonomi Indonesia, to achieve this by establishing the 6 corridor. But it needs at least 7 to 9% economic growth and also at least 1.8% population growth to achieve this. Also in terms of strategy in development, it's already shift from growth oriented. Now we use inclusive growth in 2010s. And in terms of social protection, we move from commodity subsidy into direct subsidy. As we can see, recently the government reduced a premium subsidy of gasoline. And also in terms of community development, it's become towards a community-driven development, CDD. But the result of the development still have to be improved, meaning that the poverty is still there and also severe inequality, and sovereignty is not fully owned by people. So we have to do something. That's why we propose the paradigm shift in defining and eradicating poverty. So from poverty is not due to the lack of basic needs, but because of basic right removal, meaning that poor people still exist because their basic right is still not be given. So that's why we have to change this paradigm from basic needs approach to poverty right-based approach. So we have to focus more on process and outcome, and we have to realize the rights of these poor people, especially in the rural area, land rights for the farmer, so they can improve their living standard and they can send the children to school and so on. In research method, we have to really serious on the inductive approach, not only the deductive using the model and theory is already established, but we have to really create the new theory and new understanding about poverty using qualitative research, together, of course, with the quantitative research. So like JPAL, LPM, and FAOE do not see poverty as just as a statistic, but as a complex, multidimensional issues. Let me illustrate 2 empowerment case. The one is top-down program Keluarga Harapan. Program Keluarga Harapan is the CCT program. It's top-down, targeted, but it needs the accuracy in the data to distinguish between the beneficiaries and the non-beneficiaries. However, there are still problems in the field. It's not easy to identify potential recipient and non-recipients, and also potential for manipulation and misuse of the fund. And also it erodes the social capital, unity and here in Indonesia we have gotong royong in the desa. It's already reduced because of this. As you can see here, this is the proof of some targeted subsidy program. That's not really perfect targeted because of the problem in the field. If perfect targeted, it's 20% of the people will receive all the benefits. But here, like Raskin, the unconditional cash transfer, even the 5th decile, 6th decile, and 7th decile already also received the subsidy. Here I would like to also show you the difference between the targeted and self-targeted subsidy program. Two programs, which is education and kesehatan. We can ask, sorry about the table because it's really messy. The elasticity is higher for the on-price elasticity rather than income elasticity, meaning that the commodity subsidy is more effective than the targeted subsidy using the income. And let's compare with the study that we did in the University of Indonesia, which is empowerment of farm community in Garut, West Java. So most of the farmers are landless, but they were awakened on their basic rights, which especially the land and also decent income, education, and healthcare by the NGO there. And they fought together for this basic right and started with a decent land ownership. From their children, labor can improve their living condition and send their children to school and reduce adult absenteeism at home. So we see that here in the field, if we can really give the right for the land for the farmer, they can improve their living standard. And government and others supposed to support these self-efforts in eradicating poverty. So in conclusion, I would like to say here, the poverty needs to be seen as beyond numbers and statistics, to be more humanized, meaning that we have to also look at the human side of the poverty phenomenon, and have to be more contextual by incorporating the local wisdoms, because so many local wisdom in the field we can incorporate into the policies. More inductive, bottom-up, and generate hypotheses and new theories, because I think different areas, different conditions, different cultures, so we have to really incorporate this situation. And has to be interdisciplinary phenomenon. So therefore, national development has to be inclusive and participatory by and for the people, with strengthening nationalism, sovereignty, equity, humanity, and prosperity for all, no exception. And also LPM and FOE qualitative research and JPAL quantitative randomized evaluation are complementary approach that can change how we understand and fight poverty. Our qualitative research can provide an in-depth understanding of the socio-economic realities of the work of the poor, while JPAL's evaluations can test what policies work or do not work to improve their lives and enhance their fundamental rights. This is one of the reasons why we at LPM and FOE are excited about our partnership with JPAL. Thank you very much for your attention.